What you should know before getting an anti-tragus piercing. Coming up next on Consultations by a Piercer, episode number 16. So you should stick around. For those who are new to the channel, first off, welcome to the channel. Welcome to the Body Piercing and Tattooing channel. Hope you're finding the videos helpful and useful, but you might not know who I am. My name is DaVo. I'm a professional body piercer and have been since 1994. I own and I operate the Axiom Body Piercing Studio, located right here in Des Moines, Iowa, inside Skin Kitchen Tattoo. So the piercing we're talking about today is the Anti-Tragus, the rebel of the tragus family, the bad person of the tragus family, the guy that, they're anti pretty much everything, including the rest of the year. Really, what it is this area right at the top of your lobe where it connects into the thicker cartilage directly below or to the side of the the regular tragus, which is this nub on the front of your ear. These can come in a lot of different shapes. Some are straight up and down, some are L-shaped, some are shaped kind of like a W. Like the ear, there's an infinite amount of combinations, and this can dictate whether or not you can get it done. But we'll get into that a little bit later. First off and foremost, this piercing is going to take anywhere from 3 to 6 months or longer to heal. It is notorious for being a grumpy little man or woman or something in between. They tend to take a long time to get over that initial tenderness phase, especially the tenderness of the touch. They can flare up on and off and on throughout the healing period. They can be a little bit more of an advanced piercing to heal. So what should you do during the healing process? Well, pretty much nothing but clean it twice daily using a sterile saline solution. When it comes to saline, I personally like Neomed piercing Aftercare that comes out in a fine mist, so you can just apply it directly. If you get the kind that comes out kind of like a squirt gun, then you're probably going to want to do something more in the lines of a cold compress. Take a sterile piece of gauze sponge, saturate it, and then just kind of lay it against the area for about 5 minutes, and then wipe away any excess. If you are not finding either of those products, either the wound wash version or the piercing version, what's a good option? The things you want to look for when picking out saline is A, it says sterile. B, it's in a pressurized can. C, when you turn it over and you look at it, the only ingredients that are in there is sodium chloride, aka salt, and purified or distilled water. There should be nothing else in there. Now, the only additional thing I suggest doing is at the end of your shower, kind of pulling all your hair and everything out of the way and just letting the water kind of flow over the area for about 30 seconds. Both of these things are trying to do is remove as much of that discharge that's going to harden and crust on there. You know, the crusties. Oh, gross, crusties. The natural part of the healing process. We want to remove it so that if the jewelry does get jostled or moved, it doesn't agitate the piercing, which could lead to issues. Now it's time to move on to a lot of do-nots, other words known as cross-contamination prevention. Common sense stuff. Wash your hands before you handle it. No oral contact or exchange of bodily fluids on, near, or around the piercing until it heals. Keep your environment clean. Clothing, bedding, towels, anything that may come in contact with it. Do not submerge piercing in bodies of water you cannot control the quality of, which is pretty much everything but your own clean bathtub. In other words, no swimming. Sorry. Wait till it heals. Unless you want an infection. It's up to you. Healing piercing or infected piercing? It's up to you. Keep pets away from the piercing. Do not let them sleep in the bed with you, especially smaller animals like to sleep up by your face and steal your soul while you're sleeping. Avoid contact with the piercing with unclean objects. Culprits with this particular piercing can be anything that pretty much comes in contact with the area. Telephones, headphones, earbuds, etc., hearing devices, stethoscopes, anything that comes in contact with the area needs to be cleaned on a regular basis or contact needs to be avoided. Also, make sure that your hair is dry before it comes in contact with the piercing. Wet hair can cause issues. So wear it up in a fun bun or in one of those fancy towels to dry. Trauma, pressure, and abuse. 3 other things you want to avoid. Do not sleep on the piercing. Make sure you're sleeping on your other side or your back. That constant movement and pressure will cause issues, especially with this particular piercing. It is going to be prone to bumps and other problems if you do that. Way to get around, if you have to sleep on that side, is invest in one of those U-shaped travel pillows, the neck pillows you get for going on a long flight, and then put a clean tube sock or sock on it every evening. Avoid tight-fitting helmets, hats, would a hat come on? I guess stocking caps. Anything that's going to constrict or put pressure on the area during the healing process or possibly get snagged on the jewelry should be avoided until it is completely healed. Do not spin, rotate, or move the jewelry. There's absolutely no reason or benefit to doing that. It's actually going to increase your likelihood of infection or other problem. Also, don't dig around in there with Q-tips and other foreign objects to try to get discharge off. This tends to cause problems and can contaminate the piercing itself. Just leave it be. If you are having issues getting all the crusties off there, maybe see your piercer and have them take a look at it because there might be something else going on that needs additional attention. Now let's talk about jewelry, the fun part, the shiny part. This piercing is either done with a curved barbell or a straight post, either a barbell or a labret stud. Personally, if we're going to go in the post direction, I do like a flat back labret. But it really depends on the shape of your trachea or antitragus. Everybody's a little different. Like I said, there's some that are kind of more outward, almost like an upside down L, so where there's like a shelf there. Some people it's just straight up and down. Some there's various parts of it that are thinner than other ones. So really the jewelry should match the angle that piercing is in particular, or that anatomy in particular, is sitting at. Usually this is done either with threaded or threadless jewelry. I don't suggest rings in this particular piercing for any reason. Possibly once it's completely healed and well seasoned, like a year into it or possibly 2 years into it, you might be able to wear a ring, but until then, you want to stick with posts. The other thing is because we have to allow for that swelling, we're going to put a long piece in there that is not necessarily needed after the piercing heals or even during the healing process. So once that swelling goes down, it's a good idea to downsize. I generally suggest to be on the safe side. Give it about 4 to 6 weeks into the healing process. Go see your piercer and let them do it professionally. Don't try to do it at home unless you have the proper tools, which means having some type of guide pin and hemostats to limit the trauma that you cause when you try to take the old post out and put a new one in. And also, you don't want to leave that piercing empty. So having a guide pin slide in there and keep the piercing open while you put the new jewelry in is ideal and going to cause the least amount of trauma. If you downsize at home and you just got to force the jewelry in there and cause a bunch of trauma getting the ends off and everything else, chances are you're going to see swelling. So you put that smaller piece in there, you cause all this trauma, the piercing swells up to combat it, and suddenly the jewelry's too short. And then you have to go back and change back to that longer post. So let a pro do it, unless you have the tools at home. Now let's talk about the pain. Usually most people say this is kind of between maybe a tragus piercing and a DaVo piercing. The initial push can be a little bit sticky. Afterwards, there'll be a little bit of throbbing and aching for a few minutes. Not anything you really can't live through. It's probably not going to be nearly as bad as you think it's going to be. I think on a scale of 1 to 10, this may be a little bit on the higher side, maybe that 5 to 7, depending on the angle they have to do the piercing at and what amount of pressure has to be applied to get that jewelry in there properly. Now, this piercing is going to stay tender to the touch anywhere from a week to 10 days, sometimes longer. I've had clients where they took care of it perfectly, the piercing healed perfectly, but that thing was tender to the touch for 2 months. Listen to your body. If it hurts to touch it, stop touching it. Stop making contact with it, because every time you do that, there's a possibility of causing additional trauma and causing problems, and there's probably a reason why your body is giving out those signals. Anatomy, as I mentioned a number of times, it is vastly different from person to person and ear to ear. If you're one of those symmetry nuts, understand that your ear is not shaped the same. Your right isn't shaped the same as your left. It may be difficult to match them exactly, and you have to go in understanding that we're going to pierce to the anatomy, not what's going to look like it matches the other side. Also, this is one of those piercings where I really advise, if you're going to do both, do one, heal it out, season it, and then come back in maybe a year and do the second one. The actual anti-tragus needs to be large enough or pronounced enough to make room for the piercing in the jewelry to sit comfortably on there. If it's too shallow, it may not be the best option for you and may lead to rejections. Also, the shape or what position it's in may dictate what type of jewelry and what angle the piercing is done at. So it's very important to have somebody that truly understands anatomy, can read it well, and can pierce to your anatomy. Lastly, let's talk about what you should consider beforehand. If you're going on vacation, you plan on a trip, you're planning on being out of town for a long period, you might want to delay getting pierced. When we're on vacation or out of town for business or what have you, or family, we can't really control how clean the environment is. Also, there's the added situation of having access to cleaning products and support from your piercer. The other thing that you really want to think about is, in most cases, most people, when they go on vacation, it involves swimming, and you may not be able to do that. In fact, I would advise against it. It's much better to wait until you have that planned vacation over with than get pierced. Next, if you're involved in any type of sporting activities, organized sporting activities, extracurricular activities, organized drama, speech, whatever, where there is a dress code, they may not allow you to wear this piercing while competing or being involved with it. You need to check with whoever's in charge beforehand, read the rule book, and understand that there is no way you can hide this piercing, and there is also no way that you can simply just take it out for whatever you're doing and 2 hours later put it back in. That constant removing and replacing is going to prolong your healing period, if not completely disrupt it and not allow the piercing to heal, or it's going to cause problems, including infection. And the last one is something I've already kind of covered, but I always like to cover it last. Very, very important with this particular piercing that you isolate it and you avoid sleeping on it. It tends to be one of those piercings that does not like pressure or activities near it. It likes to be left alone. It's very anti-movement, anti-pressure, anti-tragus. Well, that's all I have to say about this particular piercing. If you've had this piercing or, you're thinking about getting it done, please make a comment. I try to check them and reply when I can. Till next time, here's hoping all your piercings heal with ease and without a single issue. And if you're in the Des Moines, Iowa area, I hope to see you for your body piercing needs in the future. Have a good day, everybody. Take care, and check out some of these other videos that are magically floating around me.